You've seen the Midsummer Classic. You know who the best players in the game are. But let me tell you who the real all-stars are. I'm going to go position by position to tell you who the fantasy baseball all-stars are halfway through this season. First, to clarify the criteria. I'm not just going to talk about the players who have accumulated the most fantasy points, if you even play in points leagues, or just the best ranked players at each position. I'm going to say who the most valuable players have been based on where they were drafted, or maybe they weren't even drafted at all. These are the guys that you wish back at the beginning of the season you had identified and had on your team. The winners at each position were voted by me. So starting in the outfield, I think we have to pick Ronald Acuna. I know what I just say about where he was drafted and value and all this. Look, if you drafted Ronald Acuna, congratulations, you're probably winning your league this year. You know, we always say, well, you don't win your draft in the first round, but you could lose it. No, if you drafted Acuna, you won. This is why back in the preseason I said he was my pick for the number one overall selection. The guy has already gone 20-40, that's 20 home runs, 40 steals in half a season, 87 games. Not to mention all the other guys that were drafted who were contenders for the number one overall pick. Trey Turner's hitting 247. Aaron Judge, of course, is hurt. Who knows when he's coming back. Juan Soto has been pretty disappointing. Acuna wasn't just the best pick, he was by far the most dominant pick. All right, let's move on to outfielder number 2, and that is Corbin Carroll. He's also a guy I stumped for in the preseason. Some people said it's too soon to put him in the top 50 of ADP. Shouldn't be drafted that high. You don't know what you're getting. He's just a speedster. Yeah, forget all that. Look, if you said in the preseason that by the All-Star break he'd be hitting 289 with 26 steals, already you say, okay, that's pretty good. Be worth an early selection. What a lot of folks didn't expect was he has 18 home runs and 46 RBIs on top of that. And I haven't even mentioned the category that he's really helping you in the most, and that is runs scored. Right now he's crossed the plate 63 times, tied with Shohei Ohtani for 9th in the majors. I mean, looking back, now you could justify saying that he should have been a top 10 overall pick, but no matter where you selected him, if you selected him, you're pretty thankful. He's definitely been one of the best outfielders in all of fantasy baseball this season. And then outfielder number 3, I kind of surprised myself with this one. You know what? I'll have to admit I was not on Lane Thomas at all. But man, he's playing like an all-star despite being on a very bad Nationals team. Hitting .302, 14 home runs, 49 RBIs, 60 runs scored, and 8 steals. That batting average is 9th in the majors among all qualified hitters and 4th among all outfielders. Plus the power, a little bit of speed, he is helping you across all 5 major categories. Now at the 6th hole, obviously some tough competition at shortstop, very offensive centered position these days. I'm going to give the nod to Wander Franco. He wasn't one of the first shortstops off the board, but man, he was definitely a smart pick. I will say, I'm surprised he's not hitting higher than 278. Early in the season, he was well over 300. Kind of slowed down recently, but still, he's helping you in average. He's got 11 home runs, kind of like Corbin Carroll, a little bit more pop than people expected. 44 RBIs, 48 runs scored, and stealing a lot more bases than expected with 28 steals. This is kind of a no-brainer, actually, because the only shortstop that has a higher offensive rating right now is Bo Bichette. But Bo, where are the steals? Are you wondering when we were going to get to the Rangers? Well, here's Ranger number 1 at third base, Josh Jung. We knew the kid could hit, but had not been a mainstay in the lineup because he's so young. So it was kind of a late round flyer, some upside. I think the upside has arrived. If you don't check the stat leaderboards regularly, you might be shocked for me to tell you that Jung has more RBIs and home runs than both Austin Riley and Jose Ramirez. So yeah, this wasn't just a fan thing of the Rangers just because they're a winning club. No, statistically, he has proven he belongs in the starting lineup for the AL All-Star team. And based on the fact he was drafted so late, if at all, in fantasy drafts, just goes to show he was truly the most valuable third baseman. Now onto the keystone. At second base, this is probably the position I struggled with the most. A lot of guys that are, really close statistically. I know that Marcus Semien, probably the best out of the bunch, Ozzie Albies, but those two guys were really early draft picks. I think that my decision here is between two guys, and the runner-up is going to be Jonathan India, who is helping you for the most part across every category. And he does have more steals than the guy I'm about to mention, but the average is only 250. So I'm giving the slight edge here to Ketel Marte. He's hitting 286 compared to India's average, which is higher. Sure, he has a few less steals, but man, home runs, RBIs, he's helping you everywhere. Part of the surprising Arizona lineup that has really been productive. And Marte was also kind of an afterthought. You know, he had some injuries, had a disappointing season. Nobody knew if he really had already peaked because now, getting closer to 30, not a lot was expected of him. Well, he's proved everyone wrong, having a great year. Then we get to first base. I don't have any trendy sleeper pick or any surprise here. It's Freddie Freeman. Look, some people weren't even sure if he belonged in the first round. I think it's clear that Freddie Freeman is elite and going to be elite until he decides not to be. There's nobody I can even argue comes close to him. If you made him your first round pick, then other than Acuna, I'd say you made the best choice possible. I really don't have anything else to say. Let's just go on to the catcher position. And now I know in real life that you had up to 6 Texas Rangers on the field in the All-Star game at the same time. I don't have that many in my lineup, but here's number 2, and that is Jonah Heim at catcher. Now I know the Braves fans are going to clap back and say it should be Sean Murphy. I'm not arguing against that, but here's why I picked Heim. And again, my criteria, my pick. Murphy was expected to be doing what he's doing pretty much. Obviously, they traded for him. He's part of the best offense in the majors right now. While the Rangers are one of the best offenses in the AL, look, nobody was on Jonah Heim at all. Unless you're in a 2-catcher or a very deep league or you're a Rangers fan, you probably didn't know much about Jonah Heim, and he has produced almost to the same level as Sean Murphy. So look, Murphy has 5 more home runs, 17 to Heim's 12, but other than that, their stats are pretty comparable. For a catcher, Heim hitting 282, and he's driven in 59 runs. I will tell you, my fantasy MVPs for catcher are the 2 guys I was glad enough that I drafted in the TGFBI. That's the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational. I got Adley Rutschman and Jonah Heim as my 2 catchers in a 2-catcher league. Pretty satisfied with that. All right, on to pitchers now. I'm going to narrow it down to a 3-man rotation because, I mean, there's so many guys who could qualify here. Let's just go with the top 3 elite starters, and I'll name 1 closer. Let's start with another obvious pick from one of the best teams, and that would be Atlanta Brave, Spencer Strider. I really don't need to go over his stats and his resume. An insane 38.9% K rate. If you thought he couldn't match last year's strikeout rate, well, you're wrong. When you went starting pitcher early, if you picked one in the 2nd or 3rd round, whatever it was, and you're trying to lock down an ace, you got to choose between Corbin Burns, Sandy Alcantara, Jacob deGrom, Spencer Strider. Yeah, looking back now, it seems foolish that didn't just go with Strider if you didn't. My next starting pitcher is the guy who's actually number 1 in WAR, if you're a believer in wins above replacement as a stat. He's number 1 among all starting pitchers with a 4.0 WAR. That's Kevin Gausman in Toronto. I feel like I've been saying it all year. Guy legit Cy Young candidate. He has shown nothing different over the last couple of years. Moving to Toronto, forget it. He's just getting better with age. 3.03 ERA. And currently only 3 pitchers have a higher K per 9 rate. That's strikeout per 9 innings. Number 1, of course, being Spencer Strider. The other 2 being Hunter Green and Blake Snell. And rounding out my 3-man rotation, tough call here, but I'm going to mention Justin Steele for Chicago. If you caught my preseason sleepers for starting pitcher, you know that I was all over him. I drafted him a bunch, including TGFBI, and I'm glad I did. His 2.56 ERA is the 4th best among all qualified pitchers. Now, his strikeout rate isn't as high as some others. It's kind of just league average at best, but it's fine. And you know what actually helps is he's getting you wins if you're still in a league that uses wins as a stat, which a lot of us are, but also quality starts. He's 9-2 right now, and you know he's good to go on the bumps, about 6 innings every time out. He's been solid, he's been dependable, and he was really cheap on draft day or even available on waivers. And to close it out, it's only right that we go with a closer. Again, so many options here. Let's go with the guy who is currently tied for the Major League lead in saves, which I can't say I didn't see coming. My bold predictions before the season, one of them was that Alexi Diaz would be the guy who leads the National League in saves, and that's what he's done so far. Got 26 so far, and man, the Reds, it look like they're going to keep winning games, and if they do, keep winning close games, so he's looking like a great bet to be the front runner. And of course, elite stats and ratios, 2.03 ERA, and that 37% strikeout rate. Yeah, he's got what it takes. He's going to continue to be dominant. And he wasn't drafted as a top tier closer, which just makes it even better. Hope you're enjoying your all-star break from Fantasy Baseball. But don't just sit back and wait for the games to start again. Be active. Start stashing guys right now, including some of these players who could help you in the second half.